The transport ship shuddered as it docked with Nexus Station. Lee Tae-ho pressed his face against the small window and stared at the massive structure floating in space. The station was bigger than anything he had ever seen. Metal towers stretched in all directions. Bright lights moved along its surface like tiny stars. Ships from different worlds came and went from dozens of docking bays. Tae-ho picked up his single bag and walked toward the exit. His heart beat fast with excitement and nervousness. This was his first time away from Earth. His first time seeing aliens. His first real job as an engineer. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Tae-ho stepped into the station and immediately felt different. The gravity was lighter than Earth normal. The air tasted clean but strange. Most importantly, he was no longer the only species around. A tall figure approached him. The being stood at least 8 feet high with silver skin and 4 arms. Its eyes glowed with a soft blue light. This was Commander Veltar of the Altarian race. "You are the human engineer," Veltar said. His voice was deep and echoed in the metal hallway. "I am Commander Veltar. I run this station." Tae-ho bowed politely. "Yes, sir. I am Lee Tae-ho. Thank you for accepting me into your crew." Veltar looked down at him. The commander's expression showed no emotion. "The Galactic Confederation requires us to accept human representatives. You will work in engineering. Section C. Follow the blue lights to your quarters. Report for duty tomorrow at 800 station time." The commander turned and walked away without another word. His heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Tae-ho stood alone for a moment, then picked up his bag and followed the blue lights. The hallways of Nexus Station were amazing. Aliens of many different species walked past him. Some were tall and thin with pale skin and large eyes. Others were short and covered in thick fur. A few looked almost human but had strange markings on their faces or extra limbs. Most of them ignored Tae-ho completely. A few glanced at him with curiosity, but none stopped to talk. He began to understand that humans were not very important here. His quarters were small but clean. A single bed, a desk, and a wall screen for communications. Tae-ho unpacked his few belongings and tried to call home. The communication delay to Earth was several hours, so he just left a message for his family saying he had arrived safely. The next morning, Tae-ho reported to Engineering Section C. The section chief was a Xanthari named Dr. Kinthea. She was humanoid but taller than Tae-ho, with pale purple skin and large dark eyes. Her most unusual feature was that she never spoke out loud. Instead, she communicated through telepathy with other Xanthari. "The human cannot hear my thoughts," Dr. Kinthea said to her assistant, a younger Xanthari named Novel. "You will need to speak to him with words." Novel looked uncomfortable. "Dr. Kinthea says you will work on basic maintenance tasks, check power levels in the lower sections, clean air filters in the storage areas. Simple work that cannot cause problems." Tae-ho nodded. "I understand. I brought my engineering tools and diagnostic equipment from Earth. Where should I start?" "Human tools are primitive," Novel translated after listening to his superior. "Use station equipment only. Your first assignment is in Storage Bay 7. Check all power outlets and replace any that show wear." For the next several days, Tae-ho worked alone in the lower levels of the station. The work was indeed simple. Any first-year engineering student could have done it. But Tae-ho did not complain. He was grateful to be here at all. While he worked, he observed everything around him. The station was incredibly advanced compared to Earth technology. Power flowed through crystalline conduits instead of metal wires. The air circulation system used living plants from a dozen different worlds to clean and refresh the atmosphere. Even simple doors used complex sensors that could identify not just different species, but individual beings. What fascinated Tae-ho most was how different species worked together. The Altarians handled all heavy construction and security. Their strength was legendary throughout the galaxy. The Xanthari managed research and communications, using their telepathic abilities to share information instantly. The Krillians ran military operations and tactical planning. Their warrior culture made them natural leaders in dangerous situations. Each species seemed to have found their perfect role based on their natural abilities. Humans, apparently, were good only for basic maintenance work. During his lunch breaks, Tejo often sat in the main cafeteria and watched the interactions between different species. The Altarians sat together at large tables, their conversations deep and serious. The Xanthari barely needed to sit at all, sharing thoughts while standing in small groups. The Krillians ate quickly and efficiently, always discussing battle strategies or training exercises. Humans were few on the station. Besides Tejo, there were only 12 other humans in various departments. They usually ate alone or in small groups, speaking quietly among themselves. One day, while replacing a power coupling in Storage Bay 12, Tejo met another human. Park Ji-woo worked in the communications department. She was about his age, with short black hair and tired eyes. "How are you finding life on the station?" she asked while helping him carry some heavy equipment. "It is amazing," Tejo replied honestly. "The technology here is incredible, but I feel like I am not contributing much. They give me work that any machine could do." Ji-woo laughed, but there was no humor in it. "At least they let you work alone. In communications, I sit in meetings all day where aliens make important decisions. When I try to offer suggestions, they smile politely and ignore me. Yesterday, I proposed a new communication protocol that could improve efficiency by 15%. The Xanthari department head said it was interesting, then gave credit for the idea to his assistant. "Why do they treat us this way?" Tejo asked. "Because we are average," Ji-woo said simply. "Look around you. Every other species here is exceptional at something. Altarians are incredibly strong and live for centuries. Xanthari can read minds and share thoughts instantly. Krillians are perfect warriors. Falcon have enhanced senses that let them detect things we cannot even imagine. What can humans do that is special?" Tejo thought about this question as he continued his work over the following days. What could humans do that was special? He was not stronger than an Altarian. He could not read minds like a Xanthari. He was not a great warrior like a Krillian. But as he worked in the lower levels of the station, Tejo began to notice things that others seemed to miss. Small inconsistencies in power flow patterns, unusual vibrations in the structural supports, minor changes in air circulation that did not match the official system readings. These observations meant nothing by themselves. Any individual problem was too small to worry about. But Tejo found himself making notes of everything he saw. His human mind seemed naturally inclined to look for connections and patterns, even when there was no obvious reason to do so. He did not know it yet, but this habit would soon change everything. 2 weeks into his assignment, Tejo was replacing air filters in Storage Bay 15 when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in immediately, bathing everything in red light. An alarm began to sound throughout the station. "Attention all. Personnel," Commander Veltar's voice echoed through the communication system. "We have a system malfunction in Research Wing Delta. All non-essential personnel remain at your stations. Engineering teams report immediately." Tejo finished his current task and made his way back to Engineering Section C. The main engineering bay was busy with activity. Altarian engineers moved heavy equipment with their 4 powerful arms. Xanthari technicians stood in groups, their eyes closed as they shared thoughts telepathically. Everyone looked worried. Dr. Kinthea stood at the center of the room, studying data displays that showed system readings from across the station. Her assistant Novel translated her telepathic communications to the mixed species team. "Dr. Kinthea says the environmental controls in Research Wing Delta have failed completely," Novel announced. "The air recycling system is not working. Temperature control is offline. If we cannot fix this problem, we will have to evacuate the entire wing. That wing houses our most important research projects," added Chief Engineer Korvac, a massive Altarian with silver cybernetic implants. 12 different species have experiments running there. Some cannot be moved without destroying years of work. Tejo watched from the back of the group as the senior engineers discussed possible solutions. The Altarians wanted to replace the main power generators. The Xanthari believed the problem was in the computer control systems. The Krillians suggested checking for sabotage. Each team tried their approach. The Altarians worked for 2 full days installing new power cores. The system still failed. The Zenthari spent another day using their telepathic abilities to interface directly with the computer networks. They found nothing wrong. The Krillians searched every inch of the wing for signs of attack or sabotage. They discovered no evidence of hostile activity. By the 4th day, frustration was growing. Research Wing Delta remained in emergency status. Scientists from multiple species complained that their projects were being ruined. Commander Veltar called daily meetings demanding progress reports. Perhaps we should contact the Central Engineering Authority, suggested Novel during one of these meetings. They have experts who specialize in complex system failures. That will take weeks, Korvac replied angrily. The fastest ship from the Central Worlds needs 10 days to reach us. Then the experts will need time to study the problem. We cannot wait that long. Tejo continued his regular maintenance duties while listening to updates about the crisis. During his work in the lower levels, he had been making notes about the small irregularities he observed. Now he began to wonder if some of these minor problems might be connected to the major failure in Research Wing Delta. On the 5th day, while checking power outlets in Storage Bay 3, Tejo noticed something unusual. The power readings were fluctuating in a regular pattern. The changes were tiny, less than 1% variation, but they followed a specific rhythm. He had seen similar patterns in other areas over the past 2 weeks. That evening, after his shift ended, Tejo went to his quarters and spread out all his handwritten notes. He had documented power fluctuations, unusual vibrations, airflow, variations, and minor temperature changes throughout the station. Looking at everything together, he began to see connections. The patterns were not random. They seemed to pulse through the station like waves. Each wave started in the lower levels and moved upward through the structure. The timing matched perfectly with the daily activity cycles of different species living on the station. Tejo worked through the night, creating diagrams and calculations. His human mind seemed naturally able to see relationships between seemingly unrelated data points. By morning, he had developed a theory about what was causing the problems in Research Wing Delta. He hesitated before going to see Dr. Kinthea. He was just a maintenance worker. The senior engineers had been working on this problem for days. What could he possibly contribute that they had missed? But lives might be in danger if the environmental systems failed completely. Tejo gathered his notes and made his way to the main engineering bay. Dr. Kinthea was studying the same data displays as before, but now she looked exhausted. Her telepathic communications with her team seemed slower and less focused. Novel translated her latest orders about trying yet another approach to fixing the power systems. "Excuse me," Tejo said quietly. "I think I might have some information that could help." Novel looked surprised. "The human maintenance worker wants to speak with Dr. Kinthea." Dr. Kinthea turned toward Tejo. Her large, dark eyes studied him for a moment before she nodded for him to continue. "I have been making notes about small problems throughout the station," Tejo began. "Power fluctuations, vibrations, airflow changes. By themselves, these are not important. But when I look at all of them together, I see a pattern." He spread his handwritten charts and diagrams on a nearby table. The senior engineers gathered around to look. "The station systems are designed to handle the normal activities of the different species living here," Tejo explained. "But each species has different daily schedules. Altarians are most active during their traditional day period. Zenthari need less sleep and work in shifts around the clock. Krillians train intensively for 4 hours, then rest for 2 hours, then repeat the cycle." Chief Engineer Korvac studied the diagrams. "These are very detailed observations, but how does this relate to the failure in Research Wing Delta?" "The environmental systems are connected throughout the entire station," Tejo continued. "When all species follow their individual schedules, they create waves of demand on the power and life support systems. Most of the time, this is not a problem. But Research Wing Delta houses projects from 12 species, all running experiments on different schedules." Dr. Kinthea's eyes widened with understanding. She communicated rapidly with Novel. Dr. Kinthea says the human may have identified something we missed, Novel translated. The research wing has higher demand variations than other parts of the station. Exactly, Tejo said. The environmental controls cannot handle the extreme variations in demand. The system keeps trying to adjust for one species' needs, then immediately has to readjust for another species' requirements. Eventually, the constant changes cause the control systems to become unstable and fail. But our computers should have detected this pattern, Korvac protested. Your computers monitor each system separately, Tejo replied. They look for problems within individual departments. But this problem exists in the connections between different systems in different areas of the station. Dr. Kinthea was already working at her control panel, running new diagnostics based on Tejo's theory. After several minutes, she straightened up and communicated excitedly with her team. The human is correct, Novel announced. The environmental failure is caused by scheduling conflicts between species activity patterns. The control systems cannot handle the rapid demand changes. Can we fix it? Asked Korvac. Tejo had already thought about this. We need to coordinate the research schedules so the demand changes are more gradual, or we could install buffer systems that smooth out the power and environmental variations. Within hours, the engineering team implemented both solutions. The environmental systems in Research Wing Delta stabilized for the first time in 6 days. Scientists began returning to their experiments. Commander Veltar arrived in the engineering bay that evening. He looked at Tejo with an expression that was no longer dismissive. The human solved a problem that our best engineers could not, Veltar said. Perhaps we have underestimated your species' abilities. Dr. Kinthea approached Tejo as the other engineers returned to their regular duties. For the first time, she spoke to him directly using words instead of telepathy. Your mind works differently than ours, she said. You see connections that we miss. This is a valuable skill. That night, Tejo sat in his quarters thinking about what had happened. He had not used superior technology or special physical abilities. He had simply looked at information that was available to everyone and seen patterns that others missed. Maybe Jiwoo was wrong. Maybe humans did have something special to contribute after all. 3 days after the environmental crisis ended, alarms began sounding throughout Nexus Station. This time, the emergency was not mechanical. Commander Veltar's voice boomed through the communication system with an urgency that Tejo had never heard before. All department heads report to Command Center immediately. We have received a priority alert from the Galactic Confederation. This is a code red emergency. Tejo was checking air filters in Storage Bay 9 when the announcement came. He had no reason to go to the Command Center, but his curiosity was strong. He made his way through the corridors, following groups of senior staff members toward the station's central hub. The command center was a massive circular room with displays covering the walls from floor to ceiling. Representatives from every major species stood around a central holographic projector that showed a 3-dimensional map of nearby space. Commander Veltar stood at the center, his forearms moving rapidly as he manipulated the display controls. Long-range sensors have detected an asteroid field moving toward the Kepler colony system. The field contains over 3,000 large asteroids, some measuring more than 10 kilometers across. Dr. Kinthea stepped forward. How long before impact with the colony world? 18 days, Veltar replied grimly. Kepler Prime has a population of 52 million beings from 7 different species. The colony has no deep space defense systems and insufficient transport ships for evacuation. Captain Mordek, the Krillian military commander, studied the tactical displays. My fleet can reach the asteroid field in 12 days. We have enough firepower to destroy the largest rocks. Destroying them may create even more dangerous debris, warned Dr. Kinthea. Smaller fragments are harder to track and deflect. Chief Engineer Korvac examined the data from another angle. Our construction ships could attach thrust units to the largest asteroids. We might be able to push them off course. The mass calculations show that approach would require more thrust power than our entire fleet can generate, replied the Altarian fleet commander. For 6 hours, the galaxy's best minds debated solutions. Every idea had serious problems. Military strikes might create worse hazards. Thrust systems lacked sufficient power. Gravitational manipulation required equipment that did not exist. Taeho stood quietly at the back of the room, listening to the discussions. Gradually, he began to understand the complete scope of the problem. This was not just about moving rocks through space. It was about physics, orbital mechanics, time constraints, and the coordination of multiple fleets with different capabilities. While the senior officers argued about various approaches, Taeho found himself thinking about the problem differently. Instead of focusing on how to move or destroy the asteroids, he began considering how to change their path using the resources already available. After 8 hours of debate, Commander Veltar called for a break. "We will resume in 2 hours. Each department should prepare detailed analysis of their proposed solutions." As the room emptied, Taeho approached one of the public data terminals and began running calculations. He requested orbital data for every planet, moon, and space station in the region. He downloaded the technical specifications for all ships in the combined fleet. Most importantly, he analyzed the precise trajectory and composition of each major. Asteroid Park Jiwoo found him there 3 hours later, still working intensively at the terminal. "The senior staff meeting resumed an hour ago," she said. "What are you doing here?" "I am trying to understand the complete problem," Taeho replied without looking up from his calculations. "Everyone is thinking about this as separate issues. Military power versus asteroid mass. Thrust capacity versus time constraints. But it is really one large system with many connected parts." "What do you mean?" Taeho pulled up a complex diagram showing the trajectories of asteroids, planets, moons, and spacecraft. "Look at this. The asteroids are not just flying through empty space. They are moving through a region that contains gravitational fields from dozens of celestial bodies. Every planet and moon creates forces that slightly change the asteroids' paths." Jiwoo studied the display. "I do not understand how this helps." "We do not need to stop the asteroids or destroy them," Taeho explained excitedly. "We just need to change their path by a small amount. If we can alter their trajectory by even 2 degrees, they will miss Kepler Prime completely." "But you heard the engineers. We do not have enough thrust power to move them. We do not need to push them directly," Taeho said. "We can use gravitational assistance. Look here." He pointed to several locations on the display. "If we position our combined fleets at these precise coordinates and use the gravitational fields of nearby moons, we can create a slingshot effect that redirects the entire asteroid field." Jiwoo looked amazed. "That would require incredible precision and perfect coordination between 12 different fleets from different species." "Yes," Taeho agreed, "but it is possible." They worked together for another 2 hours, refining the calculations and checking every variable. The solution was complex but feasible. It required each species' fleet to take specific positions at exact times, creating a gravitational chain reaction that would safely redirect the asteroids. "We need to present this to the command staff," Jiwoo said finally. "They will not listen to us," Taeho replied. "We are just maintenance workers and communications assistants. Dr. Kinthia listened to you before. Maybe she will listen again." They found Dr. Kinthia in her laboratory, working on her own calculations for the asteroid problem. She looked tired and frustrated. "The human maintenance worker," she said when she saw Taeho. "Do you have another insight for us?" "I believe so," Taeho said respectfully. "May I show you some calculations I have been working on?" Dr. Kinthia gestured toward a large display screen. "Show me." For the next hour, Taeho presented his gravitational redirection plan. He explained how the combined fleets could work together to create precisely timed gravitational effects. He showed the orbital mechanics calculations and the required positioning for each species' ships. Dr. Kinthia asked detailed questions about every aspect of the plan. She ran her own calculations to verify his mathematics. Finally, she straightened up and looked at him with amazement. "This solution is brilliant," she said, "but it requires something that has never been attempted before. 12 different species with 12 different technologies, all working in perfect coordination. The timing must be exact to within minutes over a period of days." "Can it be done?" Taeho asked. The physics are sound, Dr. Kinthea replied. The real question is whether our species can cooperate closely enough to make it work. Within an hour, Dr. Kinthea had arranged for Teho to present his plan to the full command staff. The reaction was mixed. Some officers were impressed by the mathematical elegance of the solution. Others worried about the complexity of coordinating so many different fleets. Captain Mordek was skeptical. This plan requires my Krillian warriors to take orders based on calculations made by a human maintenance worker. How do we know his mathematics are correct? I have verified every calculation, Dr. Kinthea replied firmly. The plan will work, if we execute it properly. Commander Veltar studied the displays for a long time before speaking. The human solution uses the strengths of each species' fleet while compensating for individual limitations. Altarian ships provide heavy gravitational mass. Xanthari vessels offer precise positioning through telepathic coordination. Krillian fleets contribute tactical discipline and timing. Every species has a crucial role. But if any one fleet makes an error, the entire plan fails, Mordek pointed out. If we do nothing, 52 million beings die, Veltar replied. We will implement the humans' plan. All fleets will coordinate their movements according to his calculations. Over the next 10 days, Teho found himself at the center of the largest coordinated space operation in galactic history. He worked with fleet commanders from every major species, explaining the precise timing requirements and positional coordinates. Park Jiwoo became essential for managing communications between species that had never worked together so closely. Her natural understanding of different cultural communication styles helped prevent misunderstandings that could have doomed the mission. On the day of execution, Teho stood in the command center watching as hundreds of ships from 12 different species moved into position around the asteroid field. Each fleet commander reported their readiness according to the coordinated timeline. All fleets in position announced the Xanthari communications officer. Beginning gravitational redirection sequence, Veltar ordered. For 6 hours, the combined fleets executed the most complex space maneuver ever attempted. Ships from different species worked together with perfect timing, creating gravitational effects that slowly but steadily changed the asteroid's trajectory. When it was over, the asteroid field was safely diverted away from Kepler Prime. 52 million lives had been saved through unprecedented cooperation between species that had never trusted each other completely before. Commander, Veltar turned to face Teho as the command center erupted in celebration. You did not just solve a technical problem, Veltar said quietly. You showed us something we never knew was possible. You made our different species work together as one unified force. That night, word of the asteroid deflection mission spread quickly through the Galactic Confederation. Within days, Nexus Station received visitors from distant worlds. Scientists, military commanders, and government officials all wanted to understand how the unprecedented cooperation had been achieved. Teho found himself invited to meetings that were far above his official rank. Species that had ignored him completely now listened carefully to his opinions. Dr. Kinthea recommended him for promotion to senior systems analyst, a position that had never been held by a human before. But not everyone was pleased with these developments. Captain Mordek of the Krillian fleet grew increasingly uncomfortable with the attention being paid to human capabilities. During a routine staff meeting, he voiced concerns that others were thinking but afraid to express. The humans saved lives at Kepler Prime, Mordek said. But we should not ignore the larger implications. For thousands of years, galactic civilization has been stable because each species understood their role. Altarians provide strength and construction. Xanthari offer research and communications. Krillians maintain security and military readiness. This system works because it is predictable. Commander Veltar listened patiently. What troubles you about the current situation? Humans do not fit the pattern, Mordek replied. They are not the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but somehow they can coordinate the actions of species that have spent centuries learning to work independently. This changes the balance of galactic power in ways we do not understand. Are you suggesting that human involvement is dangerous? Dr. Kinthia asked. I am suggesting that we need to understand what humans are truly capable of before we give them more influence. Mordek answered carefully. Unknown to the others, Mordek had already begun his own investigation. He assigned trusted Krillian intelligence officers to research human history and psychology. What they discovered disturbed him greatly. Humanity's development was unlike any other species in the galaxy. Most races had evolved specialized abilities that gave them clear advantages in their home environments. But humans had survived through adaptability and learning. They had spread across their entire planet by studying and copying the best techniques from different cultures and environments. Humans do not invent superior technology, reported Lieutenant Zektar during a private briefing. Instead, they take existing ideas from multiple sources and combine them in new ways. Their entire civilization is built on synthesis and integration of different approaches. This matches what we have observed on the station, Mordek replied, grimly. The human engineer did not create new physics or advanced technology. He simply saw connections that we missed and found ways to make our different capabilities work together more effectively. Is this a threat to Krillian interests? Zektar asked. It is a threat to the entire galactic order, Mordek said. If humans can make any group of species more effective by working together, then the old system of specialized roles becomes obsolete. Every species will want human advisors and coordinators. The balance of power will shift completely. While Mordek planned his response to the human threat, Tejo was discovering the truth of the captain's fears. His new role as senior systems analyst brought him into contact with problems throughout the station. Each challenge revealed more about humanity's unique abilities. A dispute arose between the Altarian construction crews and the Zenthari research teams. The Altarians needed to upgrade power systems in the science laboratories, but their work schedules conflicted with sensitive experiments. Both groups had valid needs, but their different approaches to problem-solving made compromise impossible. Tejo studied the situation for 3 days. Then he proposed a solution that satisfied both species. The construction work would be done in carefully coordinated phases that actually improved the experimental conditions. The Altarians got their upgrades completed ahead of schedule. The Zenthari discovered that the phase construction created better environmental stability for their research. How did you know that our species would work well together in this way? Asked Chief Researcher Nilvara of the Zenthari science team. I studied how each of your species approaches problems, Tejo replied. Altarians prefer to work intensively for short periods, then rest completely. Zenthari need consistent conditions over long periods. By timing the intensive construction during your rest cycles and maintaining stable conditions during your active periods, both needs are met. But we have worked on this station for years without realizing this compatibility, Nilvara said. You were focused on your individual projects, Tejo explained. Humans seem to naturally think about how different groups can complement each other. Similar situations arose almost daily. Food service conflicts between species with different dietary needs. Scheduling problems between departments with different work cycles. Resource allocation disputes between research projects with different priorities. In each case, Tejo found solutions that made all parties more satisfied than they had been before the problem arose. His approaches consistently resulted in improved efficiency and better relationships between different species. Park Ji-woo, now promoted to Deputy Communications Director, noticed the same patterns in her own work. The other species are starting to request human involvement in their interdepartment meetings, she told Tejo during one of their regular discussions. They say we help them understand each other better. We see connections that they miss, Tejo agreed. But I am beginning to think it is more than that. Humans seem to instinctively understand cooperation in ways that specialized species do not. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. All senior staff report to Command Center immediately. We have a Code Orange security situation. In the Command Center, they found Commander Veltar addressing a crowd of worried department heads. We have detected unauthorized access to several critical computer systems. Someone is attempting to breach our security protocols and access classified information. Captain Mordek stepped forward. My security teams have been investigating for 6 hours. The intrusion attempts are highly sophisticated and appear to be coming from multiple locations simultaneously. Have you identified the source? Asked Dr. Kinthea. That is the problem, Mordek replied. The attacks seem to be designed specifically to confuse our security systems. Each species' detection methods find different evidence pointing to different suspects. Altarian systems detect Xanthari access patterns. Xanthari monitors show Krillian infiltration signatures. Krillian security protocols identify Altarian breach attempts. Teho listened to the discussion with growing concern. This was not a random security breach. Someone was deliberately trying to create suspicion between the different species on the station. Has any actual classified information been accessed? He asked. Not yet, Mordek answered. But the attempts are getting more sophisticated. Eventually, they will succeed. May I examine the security logs? Teho requested. Mordek hesitated, then agreed. For the next 4 hours, Teho studied the digital evidence from every species' security systems. The pattern that emerged was disturbing. The intrusion attempts were not trying to steal information. They were designed to be detected in ways that would make each species suspect the others. Someone wanted to destroy the cooperation that had developed since the asteroid crisis. This is not an external attack, Teho announced when he presented his findings. The infiltration signatures are too perfect. Real Xanthari access would not leave exactly the patterns that Altarian systems expect to find. Real Krillian techniques would not match precisely what Xanthari monitors are designed to detect. What are you suggesting? Commander Veltar asked. Someone with detailed knowledge of every species' security systems is creating false evidence to make us distrust each other, Teho replied. They want to break up the cooperation that made the asteroid mission successful. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Captain Mordek's face showed no expression, but Teho noticed that the Krillian officer was not surprised by this revelation. Can you identify who is responsible? Veltar asked. I need more time to trace the true source of the attacks, Teho said. But I can tell you that whoever is doing this has access to security information from all of our different species systems. That evening, Park Jiwoo found Teho in his quarters, working intensively at his personal computer terminal. You suspect Captain Mordek, she said. It was not a question. The attacks are designed to make the species distrust each other and return to working independently, Teho replied. Only someone who sees human cooperation abilities as a threat would have such specific motivation. What are you going to do about it? I am going to prove that cooperation works better than suspicion, Teho said, and I am going to need help from every species on the station to do it. Captain Mordek's plan unfolded over the next 3 days with military precision. The false security breaches continued, each one more sophisticated than the last. Suspicion grew between species that had been working together harmoniously since the asteroid crisis. The Altarian construction teams began refusing to share their work schedules with other departments. The Xanthari research group stopped including non-telepathic species in their planning sessions. The Krillian security forces started treating everyone else as potential threats instead of colleagues. Commander Veltar called daily meetings to address the growing tensions, but each session made the situation worse. Representatives from different species accused each other of the security breaches. Old prejudices and rivalries that had been forgotten during the recent cooperation began surfacing again. Teho watched the deterioration with growing alarm. Everything that had been accomplished through the asteroid mission was being undone by fear and suspicion. The station was becoming divided along species lines, just as Mordek wanted. But Mordek's plan had a flaw. He had focused so completely on dividing the other species that he had not considered how humans would respond to the crisis. While the other species retreated into their separate groups, Teho and Jiwoo began working more closely together. The security attacks are accelerating, Jiwoo reported during one of their private meetings. But I have been monitoring the communication patterns between departments. The false evidence is being distributed through channels that only senior security personnel can access. That confirms Mordek's involvement, Teho replied. But we need proof that will convince the other species. Right now they are too suspicious of each other to listen to accusations. What if we could catch him in the act? He is too careful for that, but there might be another way. Tae-ho pulled up a diagram showing the station's computer networks. The false security breaches are designed to be detected by each species' monitoring systems. But what if we created a situation where cooperation was the only way to identify the real threat? Over the next day, they developed a complex plan. It required careful coordination with trusted individuals from every major species, but it had to be done without alerting Mordek to their suspicions. Dr. Kinthea was the first person they approached. Her scientific mind immediately grasped the logic of their proposal. You want to create a fake research project that would require security access from all species simultaneously, she said. If someone attempts to infiltrate this project, it will prove they have been monitoring all of our security systems. Exactly, Tae-ho confirmed, but the project has to seem valuable enough that a real spy would want to access it. I can create documentation for a theoretical breakthrough in faster-than-light communication, Dr. Kinthea offered. Such a discovery would be of interest to every species in the galaxy. Chief Engineer Korvac was skeptical when they explained the plan to him. You are asking me to trust that a human can identify the real security threat when my own Altarian experts have failed. Your experts are looking for external threats, Jiwoo explained. We are looking for internal betrayal. Humans seem to be good at understanding motivation and deception. Why should Altarians trust human judgment over our own security analysis? Because humans helped save 52 million lives at Kepler Prime by seeing connections that all of our individual analyses missed. Tae-ho replied simply. One by one, they convinced representatives from each major species to participate in their plan. Some agreed because they trusted human insights after the asteroid crisis. Others participated because they were desperate to identify the real source of the security problems. The most difficult conversation was with Commander Veltar. As station commander, he had to authorize any security operation that involved multiple species. You are asking me to use our entire senior staff as bait in a trap that may not work, Veltar said after hearing their proposal. The current situation is destroying everything we accomplished through the asteroid mission, Tae-ho replied. If we do nothing, the station will be divided permanently. Cooperation between species will become impossible. And if your plan fails, then we will be no worse off than we are now. But if it succeeds, we can prove that unity is stronger than suspicion. Commander Veltar authorized the operation. Within hours, news of the fake research breakthrough began circulating through secure channels. Each species' security system received classified information about the project using their normal protocols. Tae-ho and Jiwoo monitored the computer networks carefully. If Mordek was responsible for the security breaches, he would not be able to resist accessing information about such an important discovery. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Then, just after midnight station time, the monitoring systems detected unauthorized access to the fake project files. But this time, Tae-ho was ready. Instead of the confused evidence that characterized the previous breaches, this intrusion left a clear trail. The access came from Captain Mordek's personal security codes, routed through systems that only Krillian intelligence officers could access. But Mordek had prepared for the possibility of discovery. As soon as the unauthorized access was detected, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed in every corridor. The communication system crackled to life with Mordek's voice. Attention all personnel. We have confirmed that the security breaches are being conducted by a coordinated group of saboteurs. Evidence indicates that humans are working with Zenthari telepaths to access classified information from all species. All humans and Zenthari are to be confined to quarters immediately pending investigation. Tae-ho and Jiwoo found themselves trapped in the command center as Krillian security forces moved through the station. Mordek had turned his discovery into an opportunity to eliminate human influence completely. This is exactly what he planned from the beginning, Jiwoo said as they watched security teams escort Zenthari scientists away from their laboratories. Even if we prove his guilt, he has already divided the station along species lines. Not if we can show the other species that cooperation still works better than division, Tae-ho replied. but they were surrounded by Krillian guards and cut off from the computer networks. Commander Veltar was in emergency meetings with department heads trying to manage the crisis. Dr. Kinthea and the other Zenthari were confined to quarters under armed guard. For the first time since arriving at the station, Teho felt truly helpless. All of his abilities were based on having access to information and the freedom to coordinate with others. Alone and isolated, he could accomplish nothing. Then Park Ji-woo grabbed his arm. "You are thinking about this wrong," she said, urgently. "You do not need computer access or freedom of movement. You need to show the other species that human insights are valuable even under these conditions. How can I do that? The same way you solved the environmental crisis and the asteroid problem. You observed patterns that others missed and found, connections that seemed impossible." Teho looked around the command center. Even confined here, he could see displays showing station status, security alerts, and communication logs. The information was all available. He just needed to use it properly. For the next 2 hours, while Krillian guards watched him suspiciously, Teho studied every piece of data he could access from the command center displays. Gradually, he began to see the larger pattern of Mordek's deception. The security breaches had not been random. They followed a specific sequence designed to create maximum suspicion between particular species pairs. The timing of each false alarm corresponded exactly with periods when those species were scheduled to work together on joint projects. Most importantly, the pattern revealed Mordek's ultimate objective. He was not just trying to end human influence on the station. He was positioning Krillian forces to take control of critical systems throughout Nexus Station. "Ji-woo," Teho said quietly, "I need you to get a message to Commander Veltar. Tell him to check the current location of all Krillian security teams. I think he will find that they have positioned themselves to control life support, communications, and power systems throughout the station. The guards will not let me leave this room. You do not need to leave. Use your knowledge of interspecies communication protocols. Find a way to get the message to Veltar without the guards understanding what you are doing." Ji-woo smiled for the first time in hours. Humans are good at finding creative solutions to impossible problems. While the Krillian guards watched, Teho Ji-woo began what appeared to be routine maintenance on the communication systems. In reality, she was using her understanding of different species' communication styles to encode a message that would reach Commander Veltar through channels that Mordek could not monitor. Within an hour, Veltar had confirmed Teho's analysis. Krillian security teams had indeed positioned themselves to control every critical system on the station. The security crisis was not about stopping sabotage. It was the first step in a Krillian takeover of Nexus Station. The revelation changed everything. Species that had been suspicious of each other suddenly realized that they faced a common threat. The cooperation that had made the asteroid mission successful was about to be needed again. Commander Veltar's voice echoed through the station's communication system, but this time the message was very different from Mordek's earlier announcements. "Attention all personnel. We have discovered that the security crisis has been manufactured by a group seeking to destabilize station operations. All species are requested to return to their normal duties. Security teams will stand down immediately." Captain Mordek realized his plan had failed, but he was not prepared to surrender. Krillian warriors had positioned themselves throughout the station. They controlled critical systems and had superior weapons training. Even if their deception was discovered, they could still take control through force. "Krillian security forces will maintain current positions," Mordek announced through his own communication channels. "The station is under military protection until the investigation is complete." What followed was unlike anything in the history of Nexus Station. For the first time, armed conflict threatened to break out between different species within the neutral research facility. But Teho had learned something important about galactic civilization during his months on the station. The different species had evolved specialized abilities, but they had also developed specialized weaknesses. No single species was prepared to handle every type of challenge alone. The Krillians were excellent warriors, but their strength was in direct combat and tactical operations. They were not prepared for the type of coordinated resistance that Teho began organizing from the command center. Dr. Kinthea, Teho called through the communication system to the confined Zenthari. Scientist, can your people use telepathy to coordinate between different groups without using the main communication channels? We can maintain mental contact with Zenthari throughout the station, came the reply. But we cannot communicate telepathically with other species. You do not need to communicate with them directly. You just need to relay information between groups that cannot contact each other through normal channels. While the Zenthari established a telepathic communication network, Teho worked with Chief Engineer Korvac to identify weaknesses in the Krillian position. They control the main power systems, Korvac reported, but Altarian engineering teams built most of the critical infrastructure. We know emergency override procedures that are not in the official documentation. Can you access those systems without alerting the Krillian forces? If we coordinate properly with other departments, yes, but it requires precise timing and cooperation between multiple species. That is exactly what humans do best, Park Ji-woo said confidently. Over the next 6 hours, the most complex operation in station history unfolded. Teho coordinated the actions of 11 different species, each contributing their unique abilities to counter Krillian control of the station. Altarian engineers used their strength and system knowledge to access emergency overrides for critical infrastructure. Zenthari telepaths provided instant communication between teams in different parts of the station. Velkan scouts used their enhanced senses to track Krillian troop movements. Each species contributed exactly what they did best while working together toward a common goal. The Krillians found themselves facing challenges they could not handle with military force alone. Power systems that they thought they controlled began operating under emergency protocols they did not understand. Communication. Networks that they had secured started carrying information through channels they could not detect. Security systems that they had programmed began following override commands from sources they could not locate. Most frustrating for Mordek, every time his forces moved to address one problem, 2 new challenges appeared elsewhere. The coordinated resistance was like fighting an opponent that could attack from every direction simultaneously, while defending against any counterattack. How are they organizing this level of coordination? Lieutenant Zektar asked during an emergency planning session. Our intelligence indicated that these species cannot work together effectively without central command structure. The humans, Mordek replied grimly. They are coordinating everything. Somehow they can make all these different species work together as if they were a single unified force. Then we eliminate the humans first. It is too late for that. The other species now understand what humans can do for them. Even if we remove the humans from this station, every species in the galaxy will want human coordinators and advisors. The final phase of the resistance came when Dr. Kinthea made a discovery that changed the entire conflict. While using her telepathic abilities to coordinate the multi-species teams, she realized something remarkable was happening. The humans are not just organizing our cooperation, she announced through the telepathic network. They are helping us understand each other in ways we never have before. Working together through their coordination, we are discovering capabilities that none of our species knew we possessed. The asteroid crisis had shown that different species could work together temporarily when facing extinction, but the current operation was revealing something much more profound. When properly coordinated, the combined abilities of multiple species could solve problems and accomplish objectives that were impossible for any individual species. Altarian strength became more effective when guided by Zenthari telepathic precision. Zenthari mental abilities became more powerful when supported by Altarian physical infrastructure. Krillian tactical expertise became more valuable when integrated with the sensory capabilities of other species. Most importantly, every species involved in the coordinated resistance was learning things about their own capabilities that they had never discovered working alone. Commander Veltar made the final announcement that ended the crisis. Captain Mordek and his supporters are relieved of duty pending investigation by a multi-species tribunal. All Krillian personnel who were not involved in this operation will continue their normal responsibilities. The security alert is officially ended. The station returned to normal operations, but everything had changed. The crisis had proven that cooperation was not just better than conflict, it was better than individual excellence. Over the following weeks, requests began arriving. From every major world in the Galactic Confederation, governments, research institutions, and military organizations all wanted human advisors to help them coordinate multi-species operations. Taeho found himself appointed as the first human director of interspecies coordination, a position that had never existed before because no one had imagined it was needed. Park Ji-woo became the chief of integrated communications, responsible for developing new protocols that allowed different species to share information more effectively. Ambassador Hae-won arrived from Earth 3 weeks after the crisis ended. She had been sent to negotiate humanity's new role in galactic civilization. What she found surprised even her. The Galactic Confederation Council has voted to create a new classification for humanity, she announced during a station-wide assembly. Humans will not be ranked according to traditional measures of strength, intelligence, or technological advancement. Instead, we will be recognized as coordination specialists, with unique authority to facilitate multi-species cooperation. The change was more significant than it appeared. For the first time in galactic history, a species was being valued not for what they could do individually, but for what they could help others accomplish together. Captain Mordek, facing trial for his attempted takeover, made one final attempt to discredit human influence. "You are making a mistake that will cost you your independence," he warned the assembled species representatives. "Humans do not seek to rule through force or superior technology. They will control you through dependency. Once you rely on their coordination abilities, you will lose the capacity to function without them." Dr. Kin Thea responded with an observation that had become clear to everyone who had worked with humans during the recent crisis. Captain Mordek misunderstands the nature of human coordination. Humans do not make other species dependent on them. They help other species become more independent by discovering capabilities they never knew they possessed. Working with humans, we have learned things about ourselves that we could never have discovered alone. Commander Veltar supported this assessment. The human approach to leadership is unlike anything we have seen before. Instead of commanding others to follow their vision, they help others discover their own potential and find ways to achieve common goals. 6 months after the crisis, Nexus Station had become the most productive research facility in galactic history. Joint projects between multiple species were producing breakthroughs that would have been impossible under the old system of separate, competing departments. More importantly, the station had become a model for the entire galaxy. Worlds that had been isolated by their specialized development were beginning to establish cooperative relationships. Species that had viewed each other as competitors were discovering mutual benefits through coordination. Taeho stood in the observation deck looking out at the stars and thinking about how much had changed since his arrival as an unremarkable maintenance worker. Park Ji-woo joined him, as she often did during their off-duty hours. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had never come here?" she asked.